Living a life of adventure can be exhausting. Sure, it's rewarding to chase after the world's greatest treasures, rewrite history, or solve a mystery with your family. But every now and then, it's nice to just have an excuse to take a break from danger and relax. Unless, of course, that means missing out on the one adventure you want to go on most of all.
Hobo bindles? Cans of beans?
A carefree attitude? You're heading to Big Rock Candy Mountain? Oh, I am going.
No, you are still grounded.
This is the grounding of Louie Duck, and also the return of Scrooge's greatest enemies. This is GlomTales. When we last left Louie, he was getting grounded for stealing Gyro's time tub, a cockamamie scheme that almost left his family stranded throughout history. His mother was not happy.
You are grounded. No schemes, no treasures, and Louie Incorporated is done. Understand?
Now, Louie is super grounded, isolated in McDuck Manor, and forbidden from going on adventures. And Della, she's not kidding around.
Scheme detected.
Hi, sweetie.
Louie's grounding is a core part of this episode, and by far the part with the most important story and character growth. But we'll get back to that in a minute, because while Louie's the most important, he's not exactly the star of this episode. After all, the episode's title is GlomTales. Yep, GlomTales. The entire idea for this episode is both hilarious and ridiculously insane, but it works. Now that we know from the Ballad of Duke Baloney that Glomgold's driving motivation in life is to beat Scrooge and be a better version of him, it only makes sense that he'd want to take over DuckTales itself, including the theme song. And that gag of taking over the theme song by itself is amazing. Not only is it just so Glomgold to just take over the theme song, but it feels like hastily slapped together with paper dolls being held up and pasted over the normal animation and really cheesy 3D animation. It really feels like Glomgold put it together himself. And it's at its best when it runs out of money and he's literally holding up paper stick figures. It's just hilarious all the way through. So why is Glomgold taking over DuckTales and making this GlomTales? It's because Glomgold thinks he's finally figured out one of the key big differences between himself and Scrooge McDuck. And it's one of the core themes of DuckTales that we've been talking about since the beginning of season 1.
It's his family. He's got a whole team who work harder and cheaper because they, I don't know, love him.
Okay, well, he's kind of got it figured out. Glomgold has definitely figured out that Scrooge's family gives him an edge, strength, but he misattributes that for cheap, hard labor. Glomgold's complete misunderstanding about how Scrooge's family helps him become better, a better billionaire, may be core to the story of this episode, but I think it's also kind of a really funny commentary on DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck himself. I've talked about the old comics a lot on this channel, and this is one of those things that I think kind of harkens back to that. Scrooge was never as jaded as Glomgold, but if you look at a lot of the really old Scrooge McDuck and Uncle Scrooge comic books, he does kind of treat Donald and the boys as cheap, free labor. That isn't to say that Scrooge was exactly like Glomgold. He wasn't a maniacal, unstable schemer, but he definitely used his family to go on adventures, and he never paid them all that much. The difference, of course, is under that mild exploitation of cheap, reliable labor, Scrooge actually cared about his family in those comics. And in DuckTales, both the original version and the modern show, that goes a step further. Scrooge's family makes him a better person. That's not really the point of this episode, but I do like that Glomgold's misconception of how Scrooge's family makes him stronger is sort of like a more jaded take on how Uncle Scrooge treated Donald and the boys in some of the older comics. That said, Glomgold's dedication to build his own evil mirror family to Scrooge is one of the most fun things about this episode. You watch him go around the entirety of Duckburg, picking up people to match the roles of Scrooge's family. He's got Ma Beagle and the Beagle Boys to be Mrs. Beakley and Huey, Dewey, and Louie. He goes to Mark Beaks to get his own gyro gear loose. He picks up Don Carnage, a pilot, to be the replacement for Launchpad. Every stop on this family building tour is super fun, but by far, my favorite is his last stop.
Ah, I forgot to get a Webby. Fine, let's go get Magica to spell.
Glomgold finds Magica where you would least expect her, working as a child's birthday party magician at Bunzo's.
Where fun is in the zone.
That idea is funny and deprecating on its own, but what makes the scene my favorite in the episode is Catherine Tate's impeccable line delivery as Magica. The tone, the timing, everything she says here is just extremely funny.
I want a doggy balloon.
Here's a snake. Once I reharness my powers, I'll turn you all into snakes.
What?
Happy birthday!
Anyone who's ever taken a minimum wage job they didn't like to make ends meet knows what Magica's going through. This isn't really Magica being evil, this is her just being extremely relatable.
To spell, what did we say about declaring magical war on children?
Not to.
This is all building to what Glomgold sees as his greatest evil plan of all time.
Because family is the greatest scheme of all.
But before we get to that, let's rewind a bit. Remember how I said that Glomgold was the star of this episode, but not the character with the most growth? That's Louie. The rest of the McDuck clan is getting ready to head out on the laziest adventure of all time. But Louie is grounded.
Big Rock Candy Mountain is the laziest quest of all time. It's my dream.
Your last dream made you take treasure from the past, which almost destroyed time, space, and your family. Now to your room!
For Louie, this is the harshest punishment possible. And to be honest, I'm feeling it right with him. If you're not familiar with Big Rock Candy Mountain, it's like a 1920s folk song about the idea of what a perfect hobo paradise would be. It's a lazy wonderland where you never have to work. You can sleep all day, and all you ever need to do is relax. And if you want something to drink or something to eat, there's a lake of soup right over there.
We're going where there's cherry pep springs and the con man sings? Where the gold geyser spews cash just for use?
Where all your laziest, schemiest dreams come true.
It's a brilliant idea for a DuckTales adventure, taking a piece of old American folklore and expanding it out into a fantastical place. The only problem is we don't get to see it. As Louie is holed up in the mansion, grounded and under guard of a reprogrammed DT-87 security bot, so are we. So after being teased with this amazing Big Rock Candy Mountain, we're only given fleeting glimpses of the laziest adventure of all time.
You would love this place. We're floating up a river of fresh, natural spring pep. Describe the flavor to me in intimate detail.
Describe nothing.
As much as I really want to see Big Rock Candy Mountain, not showing it to me is why this works. I really want to root for Louie. I want to see Big Rock Candy Mountain. So more than anything, I want Louie to get out of being grounded, to outsmart DT-87 and to share it with me. Which makes every defeat he suffers at the security robot all the more crushing.
Scheme detected.
Ow, come on! That was a playful deception at best.
He's supposed to be learning about ethics, that his constant scheming is nothing but trouble, a danger to his family, a risk that could see him wind up just like Flintheart Glomgold. But that's a hard lesson to ask of Louie. This is a character who has struggled to find an identity, and only just after recently learning that seeing all the angles was his special skill, he's being asked to leave that behind. Asking Louie to abandon his role as an adventurer just as he figured out what his role in the group was is asking a lot. Maybe too much.
This is the one thing I'm good at. Why can't you see?
When Glomgold's new family invades Nick Duck Manor in hopes of destroying Scrooge and winning the richest duck in the world bet between the two billionaires, Louie is provided with a new perspective from an unexpected source. Glomgold might not actually understand how family works, but in his attempt to make family a scheme, he hits on a truth about family that he doesn't understand. But I think Louie does.
But when the individual parts come together, they can achieve the impossible. And a family united is the finest scheme of all.
As Glomgold gives his poorly considered speech about schemes and family, Louie seems to realize that he's actually right. A family is like a good scheme, a bunch of pieces that don't seem to make sense with each other on their own, but can come together in the end to create something greater. And as the villains discuss ways to destroy the McDuck clan once more, Louie sees a new angle.
I know how you can win the bet, but I want in.
This episode draws to a close at the money bin, where the villains face off against Scrooge's family in an all-out brawl. I actually love how fun this scene is, with the villains on one side and Scrooge and his family on the other side, staring each other down and getting into a fight, each pairing off, and not well either. The villains are all stepping over each other to each have their own evil speech of revenge, and it's really funny. But it's not the point at all.
Everybody knock it off!
Louie?
This is not the plan!
Louie?
Ambushing his own family and destroying them wasn't part of Louie's plan, but winning the bet was.
You didn't win the bet. I did.
Combined, they actually have more money than you.
That's a dark, deep betrayal of his family by Louie. It almost feels out of character until you realize that putting together a good scheme isn't what Louie took away from Glomgold's speech. Della Duck grounded Louie because she needed him to learn that his ill-considered schemes were hurting his family. Her solution was to teach him that scheming was bad and he shouldn't do it at all. But Louie learned another lesson. He learned he needed not to scheme like Glomgold does, but to see all the angles of a situation like his Uncle Scrooge and come up with a clever plan to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
Flintheart Glomgold is a fake identity, so all your money, and all your money goes to your new partner, who is me.
Louie learned that he can still see all the angles, but he just needs to remember that taking care of his family is the most important angle of all. And after seeing him in action, Della realizes that maybe she wasn't completely right either.
Seeing all the angles is what I'm good at.
Okay, but you need to take care to not hurt the ones you love, and I'll be here to help you see the angles you can't.
Even so, Louie isn't perfect, even after learning this lesson. His goal may have been to defeat Glomgold and win the bet and save his family, but he's still an incredibly lazy and incredibly ambitious duck. He wants to be the richest duck in the world, just like his Uncle Scrooge, but he also wants to be incredibly relaxed and lazy. And he just stumbled upon an incredible shortcut to do both.
Now all you have to do is turn the new company over to Scrooge and everything will go back to normal.
Louie?
This is going to be amazing. That was GlomTales, but this is like my first video in 3 or 4 months. And I just want to say thank you so much for waiting. Life has been really crazy for the last while. I had lost the place I was living in, I moved to a new one, and welcome, this is my new home, and it's great, and I'm really happy to be here. But also, right as I'm creating this video, the world is going through a lot. We're sort of in the middle of fighting the coronavirus, and worldwide, a lot of people are staying home in isolation to slow the virus spread. And so am I. So I'm gonna try and make a few more videos and get back on the YouTube wagon. And I just want to thank you all for being here and for doing your part and staying in. It's a big deal, and we're all in this together. So, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for waiting. And like I say every time, take it easy, Internet. And don't forget to wash your hands.